This was the best color e-ink device until today, and that's because BOOX has introduced this new king of e-ink, which is not very well known and looks so spectacular that sometimes it doesn't even seem like e-ink. This is probably the first video in Spanish about this titan of color e-ink, and I admit that I don't think it's fair. And the thing is, such an innovative technology as the one you're about to see deserves to be much more recognized. This is the new BOOX Tab XC, and it's the world's first 13.3-inch e-ink tablet. It has a 13.3-inch screen Play Store, Android 13, and a full keyboard, featuring 300 pixels per inch in black and white, and 150 in color at this size. But it's also the first in the world, with such a large screen, to feature 2 speakers, 5 microphones, and an exclusive stylus with built-in vibration. I was really looking forward to reviewing this amazing e-ink tablet that almost looks like an iPad Pro. By the way, this case is really good quality and comes included, so you don't have to buy it separately. However, this one with the keyboard is the most interesting, but you have to pay extra for it. And that's because it's the keyboard of the largest e-ink device that exists today. The only thing I didn't like is this handle, which is magnetized on both sides. And honestly, it's pretty easy to lose. Still, the quality is top-notch. Just look, for example, at what the inside looks like. So this device doesn't get scratched, and if you like writing on e-ink screens, this is the best, most comfortable, and largest keyboard you can buy today for this type of device. Also, you'll see it better later, but it's a very high-quality keyboard. The trackpad is also quite large considering the size, and its weight is just over 600 grams. Therefore, it's one of those accessories that I would especially recommend for people who like to write and don't want to strain their eyes with typical LCD or OLED screens. As you know, electronic ink devices cause less eye strain and allow you to write for longer periods of time. And as you can see, it's very easy to attach. But anyway, let's get to this BOOX Tab XC. It's currently the largest one in the world with these features. By the way, you already know that on this channel I've already tested almost all the BOOX devices and other brands of e-ink devices, including the BOOX Tab Ultra C Pro. That one had a 10-inch screen, if I remember correctly. And it was the best BOOX device until this beast with a 13.3-inch screen came out. If you like these kinds of devices, you're more than welcome on this channel. The stylus, as you can see, has been completely redesigned. It has a tip similar to the Apple Pencil, and it also charges wirelessly, as you'll see later, on the side of the tablet. However, it doesn't include an eraser on the top. Also, the texture of the stylus feels a bit lacquered. I would have liked it to be a little more textured. And now here it is in all its glory, this BOOX Tab XC. It weighs a little over 620 grams, and even though it uses a Kaleido 3 display, and they've improved the algorithm and it looks better than any BOOX I've tried so far. And on this channel, I've tried pretty much all of them. The design feels very solid. It's made of glass and also metal, in this case, aluminum. And it also has 3 thin bezels and one that's quite a bit thicker, so you can comfortably rest your hand on it without worrying about accidental touches on the screen. The back is also finished in gray, plus it has those aluminum lines. I think they also help with the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and other antennas, but as you can see, it's extremely thin. It's just over 5 millimeters, specifically 5.3 millimeters. The truth is that this brand, BOOX, does a pretty memorable job when it comes to designs. You have to give them credit. And now, let's move on to the USB Type-C ports. With USB OTG option, there you would have 3 microphones. All of them are very well distributed along this flat aluminum frame. And on the other side, there's this notch that looks like a button, but it's actually the magnetic support for wireless charging of the BOOX pen. This is the first from this brand to charge this way. The magnetic attachment is strong, and near the wireless charging is an unlock button, though it lacks a fingerprint sensor. There are 2 microphones on the other end, and the most interesting part is at the bottom. One of the speakers, a notch for the keyboard, the pins for the keyboard connection, the second notch and the second speaker. You'll hear how it sounds later. It's honestly one of my favorite things about this tablet. And this would be ultimately the design of BOOX's most advanced tablet. Now let's get to the most important part, its screen. What a wonderful screen, even though I insist it has Kaleido 3, the tones, and also the brightness have been greatly improved. It's the brightest one I've seen on a BOOX screen. Also, usually large screens emit less light intensity. In this case, it's the opposite, and that's something I like. However, for example, the volume has to be increased through the screen. There are dedicated buttons for the volume. Also, some options and some information are still in English. Hopefully, future updates will include a Spanish translation. Something I like about BOOX tablets is that they have the location option. Not all of them have it, so you can use it as a GPS. And you can already see how it would work. With Google Play, you already know it runs on Android 13. In addition, it includes a 2.8 GHz octa-core CPU, 6 GB of RAM, and Bluetooth 5.0. I actually think this configuration is exactly or almost exactly the same as the one included in the BOOX Tab Ultra C Pro, which until now was the most innovative BOOX tablet in the world, including the 128 GB of internal storage. And you already know how these tablets work. They have HD mode, Regal mode, or A2 mode, that is, for viewing static content, for example, comics. I recommend HD. But to watch, for example, dynamic content like these YouTube videos, I recommend the fastest one, which in this case is A2. Depending on the content you want to watch, you should use one or the other. HD looks better, but it's slower. And A2 is faster, but the quality is a little worse. As for reflections, you can already see how well it handles them. For example, if I compare it to a regular phone, it would catch all the light. On the other hand, the way this e-ink tablet screen diffuses light is actually really well done. If, for example, you use it in very bright places, or even to read where sunlight shines directly on it, it's wonderful. Plus, it uses much less battery. And if you've made it this far in the video, you already know that e-ink screens aren't the fastest in the world. If you want speed, this isn't your tablet. They have other advantages, like I mentioned before, such as causing much less eye strain, so you get fewer headaches and they don't disrupt your circadian rhythms, so you can sleep better at night. In my case, I've been using this type of screen for many years, and honestly, on a personal level, you can really feel the difference. Above all, I would recommend this large tablet, for example, for using apps with split screen. That is, half the screen, for example, a book, and the other half for writing. You can do that perfectly. And by the way, here is the haptic option, meaning the vibration of the stylus itself. I recommend setting it to the maximum or turning it off completely. You'll notice it especially when using the pencil function. For example, in pen or fountain pen mode, it's less noticeable than with the pencil. Honestly, it's done well. By the way, the battery is 5,500 milliampere hours, and it lasted me a bit longer than the BOOX Tab Ultra C Pro. Obviously, it will depend a lot on your usage, but I was able to get a bit more than a week with varied use, and honestly, that's not bad at all. And even though it's not a device designed for gaming, especially not for very dynamic games, here I'm going to show you a test of how capable its CPU is, and above all, you'll hear how its speakers sound. And now let's move on to one of the most promising and unique features of this tablet, which is its large keyboard. The keyboard of this BOOX Tab XC is actually very comfortable to use, I think because it's the size of a standard computer keyboard. Also, check out everything these shortcuts can do. They're still in English for now. Hopefully they'll switch to Spanish. For example, this is what its cursor looks like. You already know that on the channel you have several videos like this one, for example, that will help you set up your drawing tablet much better. How the interface works, how you can, for example, type the letter EEN even if it's not there, and make it work like a Spanish keyboard. You can find all the details about this software on my channel. And by the way, this is what it would feel like to write on this large color e-ink tablet. Once you get used to it, especially to the shortcuts, it's pretty easy to use, and honestly, it's a keyboard that feels quite solid. But okay, what are its functions when it comes to writing? Well, here, just like all BOOX tablets, it's one of the most complete tablets out there. In my opinion, it feels much better than an iPad, for example. You have several colors, various thicknesses, different textures. If you hold, for example, a geometric shape, it gets refined automatically. And honestly, for all of you who want to make graphs or want to take some notes, do crafts, or work with statistics, with these extra features, which I've also detailed in other BOOX videos on my channel, everything is going to be much easier for you. On the other hand, you can also underline, and if you keep holding after you finish, you can see that the line smooths itself out. However, there's something about this screen I didn't like, and I think this graphic image will make it clear. And as you can see, the screen is extremely smooth. It's made of glass. In that sense, it's similar to an iPad, and that's not a compliment. There isn't any kind of texture that gives you a sense of resistance, like when you're writing on paper. However, the stylus has its own vibration, and I recommend setting it to the maximum to really feel it when using the pen. At this point, I'm going to try to turn up the volume so you can hear the vibration coming from this stylus, which tries to mimic the sound of a pencil writing on real paper. Thank you. On the far right is the BOOX Tab Ultra C Pro, in the middle is the Remarkable Paper Pro, and on the left is the BOOX Tab XC. These are the three best and largest color e-ink tablets with Android that currently exist. You have the individual reviews on this channel, and if you want me to analyze them against each other, let me know in the comments below, and I'll make a dedicated video comparing the three tablets. And obviously, this large tablet is also perfect for reading. Since it comes with Google pre-installed, you can download any reading app you want. And something else it does really well is when it comes to reading magazines, for example, in PDF or comics. Can you already see how they look? This would be in HD quality, that's why it's not so fast, but it does look considerably better. Also, I like that you can write on PDFs and it saves automatically. And as a work tool, for example, for a student or someone who takes notes in any format, whether it's PDF, EPUB, etc., it's going to work perfectly for them because it handles all of that really well. And now you're seeing at a microscopic level how it would look compared to what used to be the best BOOX tablet. And one of the areas where it has improved the most is in brightness. And here I'm going to analyze both tablets for you in a scenario of complete darkness, so you can see for yourselves how well they perform, both with white light and warm light. And you can already see that in terms of brightness, the new BOOX flagship is 1 or 2 steps above its previous flagship. Also, as you can see, the warm light is brighter as well. Also, you can notice it's a bit warmer than the previous top-of-the-line BOOX from the brand. However, when it comes to the lowest brightness, the previous flagship is able to go a bit lower. Therefore, if we're going to use these large tablets to read at night, I'd probably recommend the 10-inch one over the BOOX Tab XC. And now, after having seen all of this, both the positive and negative points, let's move on to another very important aspect, which is its price. So, how much does the largest color e-ink tablet that BOOX has made to date cost? The BOOX Tab XC. Well, as you can see right now, it would cost €819.99. It would be the same, but in dollars, if you live somewhere other than Europe. And also, the keyboard would be $149.99. I especially recommend this to people who like to type a lot on the keyboard and spend many hours in front of a screen. This will help your eyes, and above all, it will reduce all those problems associated with backlit screens. If we compare it, for example, with an iPad Pro with similar storage, it is undoubtedly cheaper, and above all, it has that advantage that those of you who are already familiar with this technology will end up seeing its benefits. I know exactly what has happened to me in real life. I usually work a lot with this type of device, and the truth is I love making these kinds of videos because I know that many of you also like them and are aware of all their advantages. I'll leave both links below in the video description. And with that said, I hope you liked this great color e-ink tablet. Honestly, I was really looking forward to showing you this great device from BOOX, their new flagship. And you know that if you have any questions, you can leave them for me down below in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already and leave me a like so I can keep recording in these amazing environments and mix the best and most overlooked technology with the most wonderful nature. And now take care, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.